everyone. This is Prasanth here, who have the 10 plus years of experience in Azure Cloud, especially cloud technologies and DevOps and automation stuff. I am a DevOps architect, work for TechnoWorks. I primarily work on DevOps and cloud solution architecting on Azure. So today we are gonna see learn about Azure Identity Management. So let's get started. So welcome to the session. So we'll quickly see why we need identity management, why it is important, this kind of stuff. So coming to agenda of this session, so we are gonna discuss identities. What is identity? How to plan identity? How to design identities? How to design authentication? How to build a good Azure ID and designing hybrid identity architecture in Azure. So when we talk about Azure identity management, the first question that comes when you are deploying something on cloud, any cloud for that matter. So the security is the most important pillar of the cloud architecting. So so when we design something solution for clients, so we need to really make sure that who is gonna have access to applications, and then what level of access they have, and is there any pitfalls in the access, and how to overcome any security related issues by designing good identity management system in place. So these are the very fundamental thing that we need to consider before we develop any cloud solution or provide cloud-based solutions to clients. So since we are talking specifically about Azure, Microsoft has good identity management products in stack. So we'll see how the things works. Okay, so let's talk about something like planning and design a cloud entity. So in this, we'll see on following main topics. So understanding the user and group lifecycle, and then designing the roles and administrative units, and also managing identity report capabilities. So what is a user, right? So basically any application, whether it is on-prem or cloud, so you will have set of users. It's grouping. We have a groups of users, right? For example, the developers is one group, and the reportee using is n group, and then the client end customers who utilize the reports out of the metrics, who use the metrics, those are one group. And also administrator is one group, and then who can contribute to um, you know resources, that is one group. And we can have one group who can actually allowed to create resources in cloud. That is one group. So there are so many different layers of um, roles that we can assign and have it in Azure. So probably you might have heard about RBAC. So whenever you are designing an identity management solution in cloud, so we need to always first focus will be on RBAC. So what is RBAC basically? RBAC is something like role based access methodology, right? So that meaning a set of roles, set of rights will be given to a role, and that role will be assigned to users, so that they are limited to perform certain activities out of the role has it. So that is very very key. So which role has to be given to which group, and who should be part of that each group. So those things is carefully need to be identified and designed at initial stages of the cloud project. So coming to Azure, Microsoft. So we have this Microsoft Azure Identity Repositories and Capabilities. This is one of the central pillar, I would say. So if you are talking about identity management in Azure, the first thing that comes we should come to our mind is Azure Active Directory, which is a service provided by Azure. which is central and main identity repository for whole Microsoft Azure landscape. This is a, and also each Azure tenant. So when I say tenant is a directory, so that each tenant will have at least one directory associated with it. So and also when I say tenant, one particular tenant can have multiple subscription within it, and within each subscription we'll have resource group. That is the flow of resources that we have it in Azure. So, and also the Azure tenant can have multiple directories, and these directories are separate and unique as well. For example, let's say if you have two Azure directories existing in the same tenant, they have their own set of administrator groups, and then there is no data shared between them. So that is a clear way of defining the directory, and we can isolate the permissions so that no security issues will arise. The administrator of the one particular directory in the tenant does not have access to another directory in the same tenant unless you explicitly grant role to it. So this is a basic principle. So this is generally the best practice that we follow. So basic security principle that you need to follow. Like I said, in exceptional cases, if you want to share the permission, then probably you need to assign access, explicitly grant access to it. And coming to the main set of, okay, so now we'll dive into Azure Active Directory and its identity services. If you see, can see here, Azure Directory is still logging, basically is logging into accessing into Azure portal. It will literally log everything, who is logging in, what services they're trying to access, and what kind of, it will check what kind of access they have, and any, all the metrics basically it will track, and it will track and record, so that it's kind of auditing purposes. You can clearly identify who is trying to access what kind of access they have, is there any pitfall over there, and also so it's basically it's like a workman step, I could say. It's security guard, like to the access related management. And if you see here, Azure Identity Services can be different types. It can be AAD, we have AAD, DS, domain system, and also we have access control services kind of, and then we have SaaS service, and we have business to business, and that's Azure Active Directory business to business, as well as AAD B2C, that is business to customer. So we'll see one by one what does it mean. So when I say Active Directory, this is the most single multi-tenant directory cloud scale identity service, which is provided by Microsoft. And Azure AD has features to rely on cloud services such as MFA. So when I say Azure Active Directory is service, within that we always have this multi MFA is one of the key component of how to authenticate the user who is trying to access the application. So MFA is one of the default option we always consider for providing more access. So when I say MFA, probably you could have heard about Microsoft Authenticator app. That meaning once you enable Microsoft MFA, that meaning that based on apart from your initial login, that is might be with a single sign-on or the password-based login. Again, you need to you will get an authentication request via you need to configure the Microsoft Authenticator app, and then you will get a request to your mobile phone, for example, and then once you approve it, then only it will log in. So it's like secondary check gate, I would say. So it's like a secondary check. Even though you have a successful password login, then again it will ask you to authorize from your mobile, so the mobile authentication application. So this is MFA. This is one of the key that we always prefer to have it in place. And also you can use a cloud identity management as service, which is IDMA as we call it, feature such as self-service password reset. So this is to enable a new identity management feature that it traditionally takes from vary from months to deploy to on-prem premises. So this is one of the other features that we can use based on the requirements. Coming to Azure Active Directory domain services, they allow you to move to workload to the cloud campus, that is NT-LAN manager, which is we call it as NTLM as an authentication protocol, and also you will be able to connect by lightweight directory access protocol, which is LDAP, which is common service to the directory service. So most probably you could have heard this LDAP. If you have on-prem authentication service, if you're not on cloud and then we are still on-prem, then we probably the authentication would happen to this setup. Basic group policies are also available in this scenario. And this is a service and extension to the current Azure Active Directory, and also you can take additional advantage of this functionality apart from your Azure Active Directory. Coming to Azure Active Directory B2B, this is another extension, Azure Active Directory, that allows you to provide your application ecosystem to partners and also other external parties, with focus on your authorization process. The authentication process is simplified both for the organization as well as the IAD and without it as well. Let's see a small look over Azure Active Directory conceptual architecture. So if you see here, if you can clearly see here Azure Active Directory, and then you can see a Azure Core Directory, Organization Directory Tenant, and also you have, for example, let's say web app proxy.net, and you have an application proxy, application proxy, and also you have a connected to your corporate network. And then we have endpoints, which is another way of securely connecting to network inside our Azure. And also we have Windows Azure Service Control Service, which is STS, which is again another checkpoint. So we can have so it's very easy. Active Directory is always easy to use via a web-based management portal, and also you can use PowerShell interactively, and also you can you know another way of using is Azure CLI as well. Using Azure CLI also you can manage Azure Active Directory services, maybe adding the user, assigning them the roles. That can be done via portal as well as Azure CLI, or even with your PowerShell script automation. So you can do that. And also you can also see different types of endpoints here, maybe based on OpenID, or it may be a SAML authentication, or OAuth 2.0. So SAML is the one which generally we consider is regular, mostly used authentication. Most of the times we use SAML authentication, and also single sign-on methods. In some cases we use federation method as well, in order to avoid multiple checks of login. So it's for easy based access, we enable generally single sign-on. And user scenarios of AAD premium. So coming to here, so at Azure Active Directory has a premium service as well, apart from the free service. And the premium is always so anything that is with a little bit of premium, you will have always additional additional advantages you can utilize of. If you see Azure uses Azure Directory Premium, this is the differences that you can clearly see. What is the basic? So in basic tier, we have user management, password management, and group management, and device management. And if in advanced this thing, you have administrative management and role based access management. The RBACs, which I was talking about, is something really needed. So that is always better to go with a premium, where we can have end-to-end features of AAD to utilize, and also it has reporting. So this is one of the key metrics reporting that generally client management will look for, because that is one of the key aspect that we need to audit the access management. That is very important. and different ways of managing identities in Azure. So let's see. So UX management, like I said, um, as Microsoft has wonderful portal, UI based portal, management portal. This portal is very intuitive, very easy to understand, and very easy to use as well. In special companies without on-premise directories or a small number of employees, this approach is to manage their identity. And also, it's very handy for test and small proof of concepts and application development. And like I secondly I told, right, we can manage this we can manage this identity management with PowerShell. With We have handy commands from Microsoft documentation, where it's just like a scripted way of using a PowerShell and configuring the Azure Active Directory via this command list. This much provides you actually with a simple way of automation tasks, and also such as user licensing, bulk modifiers in application. For example, if you are dealing with thousands of users, additions and then modifications, additional roles, you cannot manually do it in portal. It will take a lot of time. So nowadays, its mantra is like you need to do a lot of automation. So the most preferred way of automating in Azure is using your PowerShell. So that is writing a small set of commands in PowerShell and then executing script. It will do the rest of the things. And also Graph API management. This is programmatically uses the Azure AD Graph API. So this is an extremely powerful option. Essentially, it gives you full control of how your identities are managed in Azure Active Directory. So let's talk about what is the Graph API I'm talking about. The simplest answer to this question is Graph API is nothing but your RESTful interface for Azure AD. Okay, so it's just an API call. You can get the information and more update. You can do the operations what the way you do via PowerShell, the same way you can do it. So this interface actually allows you to perform tenant-specific queries and also programmatically access directory objects like users, groups, roles, modify them, update them, add them, so and so on and so forth. So you can also access the relationship like members and what are the members of, and then direct reports. The requests use actually a basic standard HTTP standard method, which is get, post, and delete to create, read, and update and delete objects in the Azure Active Directory. The Graph API also provides the following functionality, that is, it supports JSON and XML types as well, and as standard HTTP status code, which is compatible with OAuth v3. It uses OAuth 2.0 for authentication and role-based assignment. So you have always choice, how to manage your AD, whether the portal way. If it is small organization, you can do it via that. And if you want some automation, always go with I prefer to go with PowerShell scripting. And also the third and effective method is Graph API, which is most powerful and simple way, by calling your RESTful APIs, and you can do the same operations. Now let's see the flow between the application and the Graph API, how it happens. So you see here Azure Active Directory from application. There will be a JWT token request. It will hit the Azure AD authentication endpoint, and it will return the JWT token, and then again application will send a HTTP request with the JWT token to the Azure REST service. REST service validates the token, process the request, and sends the data from Azure Active Directory. And also it will return the response with the data. So this is how simple the Graph API. So in most of the scenarios, we use API instead of even the portal way or the commands or the PowerShell command, because it's simple to use and it's pretty much faster than the other processes. Now, so when we talk about the identity management, the process will be like this. So we lead to provisioning. We talk about we do authentication, authorization, the self-service, and deprovisioning. These are the some of the activity that is part of your identity management. So when we talk about provisioning, it is creation of person and identifier, definition of groups and different definition of groups and role membership, definition of required system and application access. When it comes to authentication and authorization, validation process of the person identity, whether he's the right person to access the resources, determination of right to access, whether he is eligible to, he has right to access a particular resource, and also audit and security reporting, and also management of system authorizations. Self-service is most of you aware that self any application, most of it will have self-service application. Instead of raising a ticket with IT help desk and wait for them, you probably, this is the best example, password reset and maintenance for the you can use all self-service and verification options, and also password reset and changes and account unlock. These are all be comes part of your self-service. And also deep provisioning, this is one of the key um, key part, key process of your identity management. For example, let's say if you have a team and who is having access to that subset of resources in Azure account, and then once they leave the project, or for some reason they're out of your project, and the users is no more part of no more eligible to access the resources, then it's immediately we need to revoke their access. We need to remove those users from we need to deactivate the user account and deletion of user account and security pledge. This is one of the key area where most of the times we find pitfalls in the process. That meaning, even after the person leaves the organization, or he's no more working with a particular account, no more eligible to work with account, they still have access in place, so they'll be left as is. So that is not a good thing. So this is deep provisioning is something very very key as part of your identity management process. So we already covered this. Sorry. Okay, so this one, the we talk about self-service group management feature provides the following capabilities. Like I said, Azure AD Premium empowers users to request membership to security group and permits group owners to approve any or deny access. Okay, currently supported on Azure AD or groups are within my app. For example, I would say the group membership policy is controlled by one of the three methods. One is open access, and only owners can add members, and group owner approval. So owners, this is always important. The second point, the owner can only add members, or it's open access. So most of the times we'll have group owner approval to add members. Defining the required device principle. So probably in a typical setup, uh, whenever you are joining an organization, your device, for example, the laptop that you get, the user laptop that you get to access the application would be authenticated, would be added to Intune, Microsoft Intune, and then it will be validated. That meaning they can control your PC, and then they can update your PC, and then admins of Intune can basically control your PC and then push the necessary updates, and then they have support restrictions on your computer which things we can modify. So, for example, with Azure Directory, you are able to connect your personal corporate devices to the directory services. After joining the device, it becomes a known device, and the user is able to single sign on with this control. So that meaning your device actually as a general matter of access, it will join your Azure AD, so that those Azure AD policies will be automatically applied on your device. So if you can see, for example, it can be your Office 365 account, and then you will Azure AD login. It's a single sign-on method. You will log in, and then authentication services and device registration services. These are the background services which will run, which will allow your device to be added to the domain, AD domain. Okay, like I said, RBAC, this is a very very key component as part of your Azure Active Directory identity management. RBAC is the one which allows manage to manage their Azure service, at the same time limits the access to only specific resources rather than entire subscription. This is where, for example, we have typical roles like owner. Owner means he'll have everything, end-to-end access on subscription and resources, everything, which generally we should not give. And also there is always concept of a least privilege thing. That meaning, if you are giving one access to any user, any person, that should be based on the least privilege. That meaning we cannot give maximum privileges but least privilege. So we, for example, like contributor and only reader, okay, read only access we can give. For example, if you don't want particular person not to modify or not create resources on your subscription, then you can give read only access. Or if you want, if you allow him to create resources, then you can give contributor is the least privilege access that you can give. Okay, so even again, even the contributor will access will have subset of resources, not everything, and not everything as an access. Okay, so we see here administrator and co-administrator. This is the very highest level of role that we can. So we will see, they will see all the resources in all portal through all API. It is very dangerous privilege to be given to all. It will be very much restricted. Mostly, it will be given to one who have access to delegate roles and all. And again, users defined in RBAC, they will not have access to service management portal or API, and also users not assigned to either. So they will only see the empty ARM portal, and they will not be able to access any access service management portal. The subscription is no longer management boundary for permission in Azure, and role permissions. There are, for example, we have 22 built-in RBAC roles controlling access to Azure. So RBAC is, like I said, RBAC is the one which you need to decide which roles has to be assigned to which group, and which group has to be assigned which kind of users group, set of group. RBAC capabilities quickly we will go through. So Azure Active Directory, we have users and application groups, and also role-based access control. This is RBAC, and then we have Azure Management Portal. We have Azure CLI, where you can interactively do the commands, issue the commands, and Azure Service Management API, and also Azure subscription. You will see at the tenant level, and then under subscriptions you will have resource groups and resource group. Under resource group, actually you will have actual resources. So this actually it will create, okay, so which person will have access to which subscription, and under which resource group you will have the access. So to minute level, you can define how strict you want identity access can be provided. In a typical large scale implementation, we'll have very deeper nested of very deeper nested of multi subscriptions and multi accounts, multiple resource group, multiple teams. So we need to be do a lot of due diligence before you finalize which kind of access roles and to be given to at what level people should have access to resources. So that is, RBAC is the right answer for those kind of you know um, implementation. Now, designing the administrative units with Azure Ready Premium feature, you get a capability of administrative units. Administrative units helps you to delegate administrative access in large enterprises. For example, you can allow a set of people to manage subset of users in your company, or delegate administrative tasks to special regions or business units. For example, if you have a multi-region, it's not one person cannot manage everything. If you have a big organization where we have multiple regions, multiple business units, then you can delegate delegate the authority to give access to users. So that is where the administrative units will come. So, for example, if you see here, Identity Plus is a global administrative role. And for example, if here in this, we have different regions, for example, Europe, Africa, Australia, then we can have a regional administration role. And again, Switzerland, Monaco, Victoria, for example, which is a regional policy. Okay, again, within Australia, we can have multiple subset of regions where we can have a regional policy and management role. So it depends on how depth the business model is. So how depth you want to maintain the identity management. So based on that, we can use the administrative units feature for delegation purposes. Managing identity reporting capabilities. So reporting is another key component that we need to consider before you develop any identity management system in so this literally like I said, it will literally logs in, or who is logging in, what kind of access it is, or those kind of key information, the metrics what we call. So it will Azure Active Directory contains a series of reports that can be again insight into various activities around the user. These reports are broken down into can be broken down into three categories. One is anonymous activity, that is reports potentially suspicious activity, could be an indicator of security incident. So this is the reason why we need to log in. So for example, a person who doesn't have access to a particular resource, trying to access the same resource, maybe with the intention of violation of security rules, this auditing report will have those information. Activity log, this is for each and every activity that you perform via portal, the Azure Managed portal or backend. It will have activity, any resource, each and every minute activity will be recorded as part of your auditing purposes within the directory, such as password management or self-service identity activities. Integrated application, this provides the statistics regarding applications are being, so which are the applications being used, the usage report, everything we use that. So this is reporting is one of the key thing for a management perspective. So probably the stakeholders of this will be the being the account managers who look after the billing. Basically everything is billed, right? So you need to be and also around the security, right? Around the security and billing perspective, you these are the useful tools, reporting tools that you can keep a tab on monitoring. So the reporting structure, how it looks like. Okay, so it's the reporting services, and also the user device activity and the location the SaaS application is trying to access, digital crimes unit, and the UX, this thing, notifications you will get, and the API, this thing. So it's literally logs everything, and you have a wide variety of dashboards to verify, what kind of activities are going on. Azure Active Directory as events. So with Azure AD audit reports, you can identify these are the possible thing that you can identify with reporting. The user is sharing their password, maybe which is absolutely against the security rule, which is using a remote user is removing a remote desktop to launch a web browser for sign in, and this is another security issue, and user is using a VPN and going through proxy in another region which is not supposed to, and a hacker is reportedly a hacker has been signed in account of user from a different country where he has from the origin apart from the original country of the user has forgotten their password, and user is the victim of successful password guessing, brute force attack, something like that. So these are the types of activity that you can easily find out was AAD reporting. Next, coming to areas as identity provider, the typical questions that we generally in the projects when we talk to customers, like we get is that how can I arrange collaboration without managing foreign user, for example, from management side, how do I monitor the usage of this application? This is another important um, aspect that we need to look into. And also, how do I enforce the correct set of permissions to this application? This is access related control. And how do I ensure that legitimate users have access to this application? These are the questions you need to ask yourself, or before you identify the solutioning to the start designing the identity management system. How Azure AD addresses the challenges, right? So like we explained, um, any user on any device, like you know we discuss about MFA, we discuss about reporting, and we discuss about RBAC. So these are the way it easily these are the backbones how Azure AD will address the challenges of proper access to the resources. For example, if you see any device, yes, again, it should be authenticated by MFA using any identity provider to any application managed by any delegate, open standard. Like I said, we mostly use SAML authentication or single sign-on, or even it is federation kind of login to make sure that right people are accessing. So that is the way it makes sure that right people getting access to the right resources. Federated identity also, right? Even some of the cases we we integrate on-prem, because on-prem client customers on-prem AD to Azure AD, Azure Cloud AD as well, because during the migration we cannot shift, lift and shift as it is, because they want to continue. Sometimes they want to continue on-prem AD as well as Azure Cloud as well gradually. Then we'll completely shift to Azure, a cloud-based identity management. Coming to Azure Active Directory authentication endpoints, this is the one which I was discussing. Like endpoint is the one is a secured way of accessing your Azure resources. This IAM provides endpoint is a tool to securely access to the Azure resources. There are different kind of, like I said, SAML and then OAuth based or even federation based endpoints, which will use signing via service STS, or even with a 365, Microsoft 365 authentication. Common features. Let's see common features for application access in Azure AD. So we were talking about resources. Now we're talking about application access as well in Azure AD. Microsoft generally provides two methods for application, methods for providing SSO with Azure Active Directory implementation, which is federation based SSO. The other one is password based SSO. So the generally the federation based SSO is the most seen method of identity management what we follow. And also it's not some cases we still have password based SSO as well. Let's see what is federation based SSO. The configuration of federation based SSO enable the users in organization automatically signed in a third party SaaS application. For example, when you already logged into Azure AD by access, for example, let's say myapp.microsoft.com, then you want to access resources controlled by a third party SaaS application. Federation eliminates the user to be re-authenticated. So this won't ask you again and again the password base. So that's why I said federation based SSO is one of the best method to use in SSO. The password based SSO, that meaning the configuration of password basis to enable the users in the organization to automatically sign into a third-party application, most of the cases, by Azure Active Directory using the account information from the third-party SaaS application. That integration will happen. When you enable this feature, Azure AD collects and securely stores the user account information and related password. That meaning you don't need to enter in again. So password basis will rely on a browser extension securely to retrieve the application and user specific information from Azure. So these are the two methods where you can anything you can use. But if you ask me the best practice, then and it's simple to use, then federation based SSO is the one you should go for. Common token standards in federated world. So when a digital identity is transferred across a network, it's only collection of bytes. It's common to refer to a set of bytes containing identity management or security token, or just the token for that matter. Client-based world, the token contains of one or more clients. Each of the carries some piece of information each user it identifies. So these tokens are the one different have different flavors in today's world. So the most kind of token that we use is SAML and JWT. SAML is actually XML based token, and also very descriptive. It have very descriptive metadata, whereas JWT stands for JSON Web Token, more easily humanly readable and understandable and small token size. So these are the basically a standard method that we use. And there are other like simple web token and also Kerberos type of that, but mostly use a SAML authentication as well as SAML tokens and then this JWT tokens as well. So how does the SAML authentication will happen? So the user sends, the user authenticate. There will be a SAML issuer in place, and then web application. And whenever the user is try to authenticate, web application will, SAML issuer will be verifying and return the token, and then that way it will allow you to access the web application. So the process typically, like I said, trust is established between your web application and the SAML issuer first, and then the user browser to the web application. The web application detects that user is not authenticated at that type of point of time, and then redirect the user to SAML issuer. Once the user is automatically browses to SAML issuer, and then the user authenticates to SAML issuer, and then SAML issuer builds the token and pass it back to the user, and then the user posts the token to the web application and get authenticated. This is a process how the SAML authentication works, which is mostly common authentication that process that we use. How does this one, like I said, Azure MFA is another key component, the key way of how we enable MFA. So, like I said, it can be a mobile app authenticator where you will get a request where you need to approve, or it can be a phone call or via SMS text as well. So, I prefer always this mobile app. You need to install Microsoft Authenticator where you can configure your application, and then whenever you try to access it, you will get a request to your mobile phone where I'll accept it and then authenticate and success. It makes you successfully logging in. And this is how the MFA, the structure, how it looks like. Um, how the on-prem app, how the request generated, how the SAML token will go to cloud app, how the users will get it, and will get a users must also authenticate using their phone, mobile or device, like I said. And then once it access the multi-factor authentication, it will go to your Microsoft Azure AD directory, and then it will authenticate you to log into the application. So we have a on-prem apps, and then we have a multi MFA authentication server, and also a Windows Server Active Directory and other LDAP on on-prem, and also this is on the cloud. And then we have your mobile application here, and then where you get the where you access, where you get the request to approve it. Okay. And coming to the end of the session, so we briefly discussed about what is IAM especially, and then what is IAM especially in Azure's perspective, and also what are the key components and how to use it. Hope you like this session. Got some insight into identity management from Azure. Thank you.